part of our subconscious. It's all part of our subconscious. It's all part of our subconscious. Yes, it's all gonna come out sooner or later. It's all gotta come out sooner or later. It's all gotta come out sooner or later. It's all gotta come out sooner or later.
This is Josh Harris, one of the first people to make millions off the internet, and he's streaming his crumbling life and mental health in one of the first 24/7 live streams. What happened? Today we look at not a film, but a video art project known as We Live in Public. To understand what got us to this point, we first must understand the man himself. Josh Harris was the son of a CIA agent and a social worker at juvie. A pretty bad combo, since this meant his father was away from home a lot and his mother would get home bitter over work. He was also the youngest and weakest of his family. He would frequently get nosebleeds and injuries, which meant everyone kind of kept their distance. He was a nerd in every sense of the word. Not knowing what else to do, his mother just sat him in front of a TV set and raised him that way. In fact, his character was probably influenced a lot more from Gilligan's Island than by his own family. He may not have had many emotional connections, but he did have one thing: his fascination with technology. In 1984, after graduating with a degree in communications, and with only $900 to his name, Josh Harris made his way to New York. During his days in college, he saw the growing potential of the internet, so logically his first step was to create the company Jupiter Communications. The company was essentially a market research firm that could provide other companies statistics for their future online endeavors. That sounds boring as fuck, so here's a cool hip commercial they published. Okay, we can make fun of it for being dramatic and calling this a revolution, but that's really what it was back then. And not many saw it at the time. Most professionals would blow it off, calling it just a fad. However, Josh Harris and many other entrepreneurs called the dot-com kids would swiftly prove them wrong. When Jupiter Communications went public, Harris's net worth would reach over $80 million. And when you have a lot of money, you throw a lot of parties. With almost any resource at his disposal, Josh Harris decided he wanted to innovate even further. Some might say he was a nutjob who made a bunch of failures. However, others might say he was predicting the future. Ask him today, and Josh Harris will tell you that his online television network PSUEDO was a fake company, or even an art project. And if you take a look at the site right now, you'd be inclined to believe him. That's because PSUEDO truly shined in the late 90s. It first began as a web radio broadcasting platform that focused on covering art. From here, Harris would incorporate DJs and eventually live TV shows. Some of them were regular news shows covering topics like gaming and hip-hop. Others, well...
Hey, welcome back to Judge Cal's High Weirdness. Snack Girl has covered herself in peanut butter.
Yeah, it's kind of fucking weird, but also unique and perfect for helping them stand out from the competition. And I don't just mean other internet TV networks. I'm talking about the big boys like CNN, NBC, CBS. I mean, you could turn on CNN and watch boring news, or you could tune into PSUEDO and watch Josh Harris interview sex workers. It was this disparity with the mainstream media that helped PSUEDO gain a following. Live shows weren't only great for audience interactions, but they were great for investors since buying an advertised product was only a few clicks away. A lot of the aspects that helped Pseudo rise to prominence can still be seen today. So then what happened to Pseudo? Well, it turns out Josh Harris's biggest enemy was himself.
Send in the clowns.
Harris was not only a smart businessman, but also a surrealist artist at heart. One of the first art projects he made was a short film named Wander My Head. It explored the idea that television was starting to become a much more influential part of people's lives, in a not so subtle way.
Conform with me. Conform with me.
Conform with me.
Conform with me.
Wow, I really gotta pull out the spark notes for this analysis. Perhaps his weirdest art project would manifest itself into a character known as Lovey. It's this weird clown-like character in gaudy clothing that's apparently based off the character Lovey Howell from Gilligan's Island. Forget damaging your kid's eyes from too much TV, this is the real concern. Lovey's purpose was to be the representation of an internet alias. Essentially what you can't be in real life, but can be online. For Harris, he saw himself as a gay man trapped in a straight body. But at the same time, not really? I don't know, beats me. The character would appear on the website show Cherry Bomb, and surprise surprise, no one really understood or liked it. And if audiences didn't like it, you damn well sure investors didn't. Especially considering the fact that he appeared as this character in important meetings. I respect the hustle, but maybe not a great idea. Or maybe it was, since he was already planning to leave the company, and did so by December of 1999. Ironically, even though Josh Harris made Pseudo seem unprofessional, he was also the reason why it gained traction in the first place. The shows were chaotic because he treated the business like an art project. He threw money at literally any idea people came up with. No matter how stupid, everything had potential. While I don't know the exact details, I think Pseudo probably declined because that mentality left. Anyways, Josh was moving on to newer things, and a step closer to his downfall. During his final month at Pseudo, Harris was already hard at work on his next art project. If his art wasn't going to be respected by his own company, well, then he'd just do it himself. With around $2 million, he created the social experiment Quiet, We Live in Public. Harris would take 100 volunteers and put them in a 3-story loft in New York City. They were provided free food, shelter, and entertainment. He would also install 110 surveillance cameras to document everyone's movements, a feat that would make even Charles Styles jealous. Surveillance was the most important aspect of this experiment. As Harris explains,
everything is free except the video that we capture of you. That we own.
Cameras were placed everywhere, such as the dining table, the toilet, the showers, the beds. In fact, beds were not only installed with cameras, but also with TV sets. This is because every participant had their own channel. Not only were you being watched, but you could also watch others. It was a dystopian concept with one key element. Instead of everyone forced into conformity, people would be encouraged to stand out for an audience. And that's exactly what happened. This experiment would actually reveal a lot about the internet that's ultimately been proven today.
As time goes by, we're going to increasingly have our lives exposed in very personal and intimate ways. Andy Warhol was actually wrong. His view is, of course, that people want 15 minutes of fame in their lifetime. Our view is that people want 15 minutes of fame every day.
We can see this in most social media platforms. Remember back when lockdown started and every celebrity started tripping over themselves to stay relevant? Madonna went insane, and Gal Gadot and pals sang Imagine. Yeah, maybe you should have imagined yourself in a better movie. We then have famous vloggers where it seems like each action they take is a publicity stunt. Hell, I'm a pretty good example myself. I've always wanted people to watch my videos someday, and that iceberg was essentially my 15 minutes of fame. I can only hope I keep that momentum going and don't fade into obscurity. Also, let's listen back to that Josh Harris interview because it sounds real familiar.
Everything is free except the video that we capture of you. That we own.
You know, I've been making Quiet sound like it was some sort of insightful art piece. While I do think the ideas and concept that arose are quite fascinating, in reality, the experiment was kind of a shit show and eventually got shut down New Year's Day. The main problem was, well, safety issues.
Is it gonna be fire code? Of course it is.
Yeah, it was bad. On top of that, there was apparently an underage boy there, so that shit had to go. In fact, Harris got off pretty lightly with just the experiment being shut down and no actual legal charges. Maybe if he had received some severe consequence from this, it may have prevented what would happen next. Cause, you see, the target for his next experiment would be himself. After Quiet was shut down, Harris took a small vacation from his business and artistic ventures. Over the course of several months, he would form a relationship with a woman named Tanya. She was actually a host on one of Pseudo's shows, Cherry Bomb. Josh and Tanya had actually worked closely together many times.
I haven't had anything, but I'm holding the Viagra. I got the Viagra.
You can already see the sparks flying. Most people would wait a year before moving in with their partner, or at least I assume. I wouldn't know. But not Josh Harris. Not only did he ask her to move in with him, he also asked her to be a part of his next 24-hour surveillance art project. And she agreed. After seeing the success of Quiet, Josh felt that the future of online interaction was streaming. Specifically, streaming your normal life to thousands of people. And boy was he right. So he set up a bunch of cameras all around his house, in the kitchen, the living room, the bedroom, the toilet? I wonder what Charles Styles would say about all of this. Wait, I already made that joke.
Destiny, can you rub your clit against the waffle maker? Thank you.
So you have this newly developed relationship, and you decide to document every single interaction of it to hundreds, even thousands of viewers. What could go wrong? Well, initially nothing did. Like everything you start off doing, things go through a honeymoon phase initially. They genuinely had fun interacting with chat as they lived their lives. The appeal for many came from the fact that it wasn't some scripted show. It was a real-time interactive event. It's an experience that can only be achieved through live streaming.
You'll never dunk me, you fuckers! Fuck all of you! It's not gonna happen!
You know, I can see why it'd be exciting to see a relationship unfold in real time. Right now, they've moved in. Next, they'll get married, have a child. However, what I think everyone, including the subjects, failed to realize was that you're going to see all the problems as well. Unlike a regular relationship, you can't really talk out your differences when there's a camera in the toilet. Furthermore, the fact that there was an audience in the background meant that arguments played out a lot differently. Instead of trying to resolve their issues, they instead wanted to win favor over the spectators. As it turns out, audiences seem to be mostly on Tanya's side. Obviously, this sort of behavior created a toxic environment for anybody to live in. Eventually, it would culminate into the moment that marked Josh Harris's decline as a person. Around day 78, Josh and Tanya got into an argument. Josh was upset that Tanya was no longer comfortable living in public, or even with him. In a fit of rage, Josh grabbed her violently. Tanya was able to break free and walk out of the room crying. Now, I can't understand why anybody would do this to their partner, but even less when there are hundreds of witnesses to your actions? Now, clearly he's being affected by the environment that he's put himself in, but like, just end the damn experiment when you realize it's destroying your life. Unsurprisingly, Tanya left after this, but not before Josh could do a last-minute proposal to her to keep her in. Fucking classy, dude. Things just kinda kept getting worse for him. On April 14th, the Nasdaq stock market had its worst day ever. Tech millionaires like Josh were now losing all their money. Unfortunately, he runs into the same problem he had with his relationship. Unlike everyone else, he doesn't get to deal with its problems in privacy. Not only was he bleeding money, but also his audience. Turns out no one wants to see some middle-aged loser sulk around losing his whole fortune. Despite his whole life going to shit, he still kept at it for quite a while. It seemed like streaming was all he had left. It's hard for people to walk away from it all, even if it's ultimately the best thing for themselves. Eventually though, it all proves too much for him. Josh Harris ended the experiment and would promptly retreat from the public eye. In 2009, the documentary We Live in Public was released, which revealed he was now residing in Ethiopia. In 2016, it was reported that he was now residing in Las Vegas, although anything more recent is unknown. He was once called the Andy Warhol of the internet, but if you look up his name now, you'll find mostly information on an American author. He's pretty much just a footnote in internet history now. Josh Harris's main goal in life was to show us the future of the internet and live streaming. And honestly, he kind of did, right down to the part where it consumes your life, blows up in your face, and you fade into irrelevancy. So, what did we learn after all of this? Well, if you're gonna try and broadcast yourself, try being a little less like Josh Harris, and a little more like Steven Vlogs. Look, he's feeding Kepler. Again. I fucking love this shit, man.
I like the Yoshi.
Yeah. And Zelchers.